G'day everyone. Today we're going to look at how to respond to a fuel spill, including the deployment and recovery of booms and absorbents. Now each marina has different equipment that could be split into three different categories. Firstly, we have containing equipment such as inflatable or fence booms and possibly drain covers. Then we've got the absorbents that can be used to recover fuel from the water or even oil from the ground. And then last but not least, we've got the ancillary items. So we've got our personal protective equipment, lines, heavy duty plastic bags and wheelie bins. So we'll have a look at each of the items in more detail, but firstly there are some protocols to be followed. Each site has a pollution response plan with a flow chart that spells out the legal requirements for reporting and the actions that need to be taken. Usually we start by isolating the source of the spill by using emergency shut-off valves and switches. If there's petrol involved, we need to isolate the electrical supply to the marina at the main switchboard, call the fire service and evacuate the site. If the source is not immediately obvious, then isolate underground fuel tanks or any other potential contamination source until you're sure. Generally speaking, we categorise spills into three sizes. Now small is less than a litre, so a single kind of pad. Medium is what we anticipate you've been able to control with equipment on site, and large is most likely going to need outside assistance. Now containing and cleaning up any water-based spill is resource hungry, and someone's going to need to start phoning for assistance as early as possible. Your response plan lists contact numbers for people and organisations that might be able to help with additional people and equipment. So make sure you're familiar with the flow charts and the flip charts for your site, and ensure everyone knows where the isolation valves and the switches are located and what each of them does. Let's have a look at containment booms. Now some marinas have purchased specific lengths of floating booms for closing off the marina. These will need to be deployed by a small team of people and ideally a workboat. Each of these 15-metre sections of boom weighs around 10 kilograms, so you need to think about how you're going to transport them to the launching site in advance. Sections slot together just like this and can be secured to the shoreline or towed using floating lines attached here. Before we look at deploying these booms, let's have a look at absorbents. Now absorbents come in many different sizes and shapes, but are generally referred to as pads, sweeps and booms. For land use, we also have dry absorbents that may be granular or fibre. Now the pads vary in thickness and usually come in packs of 50, 100, sometimes even 200. And some are even described as being able to contain a whole litre of diesel. Okay, the sweeps are of a similar thickness to the pads and are most commonly 30 metres long. Now they're useful for containing small spills, but become saturated quite quickly and it allows the fuel to escape. So they're best for sweeping up in the final stage of the spill recovery, hence the name, and may be capable of absorbing even up to 50 litres of diesel. Now the booms vary in size, but the most useful lengths are 3.5 to 6 metres in length, and they're fitted with clips for connecting to each other. Now a 3 metre by 5 inch is reported as being able to absorb as much as 40 litres of diesel. Let's talk briefly about personal protective equipment or PPE. Now if you're deploying booms or spill kit from boats, then life jackets are essential. Other surfaces may also become extremely slippery, so if you're working anywhere with a fall hazard or at night, they should also be worn. Other PPE such as gloves, gumboots and disposable overalls are essential at all stages of the response, as both diesel and petrol give chemical burns. The disposable nitrile gloves are ideal for this work. Now make sure your normal working clothes are protected, because it's virtually impossible to wash out all the fuel. Let's look at deployment. So we generally start with floating containment booms and then we move to absorbents. If you're towing booms, then attach them to the bow of the boat, and this will provide more control and less risk of wrapping the propeller. It's best to have one person driving and another looking after the boom and the lines. Now if there's any tide running through the marina, the booms will need to be angled to reduce the flow rate and prevent the fuel from just passing underneath the boom. Have the shore end connection of the boom down tide to drive the fuel towards the shore, and this makes it easy for recovery. If you're trying to contain fuel within a section of the marina, don't forget to plug the gaps between the pontoons. Diesel and petrol are lighter than water and therefore they float on top. Now petrol boils at around -40, so will quickly turn to a gas and create a flammable vapour above the water. A diesel will never evaporate in the same way as petrol, and it mostly stays on top and it just spreads out. If you can see rainbow colours, the sheen is very thin. Now avoid using dispersants because this just carries the fuel into the watercourse and it's toxic to the marine life. It's far better to keep the diesel on top and let UV and nature do its job and break it down. And most diesel will disappear within a couple of days. Now absorbents are just made of polypropylene or some other synthetic products that are hydrophobic, and this means they don't mix with water. But they do, however, attract, and to a certain degree they absorb fuel. Once we've deployed absorbents, they can quickly become saturated and need recovery. Now diesel's got a density of around 80% of water, so our 3-metre boom that contains 40 litres of diesel might weigh over 30 kilos. We need to be conscious of this weight when recovering saturated booms. Place plastic sheeting across the pontoon where the recovery is going to take place, and then place an empty wheelie bin close to the edge. Recover the booms straight into heavy-duty plastic bags and cable tie or tie the tops before placing them in the bins. Now this is a heavy, slippery and messy job, so work in a team. You can use boat hooks or sweeps to recover absorbent pads. Any fuel contaminated material requires classified disposal by a waste contractor, and it also needs to be tracked to ensure it ends up in the correct disposal site. The contractor will often deposit 200 litre steel drums on site so that you can transfer any contaminated waste into those for later collection. Last but not least, remember to restock fully, report and debrief the incident. Now reports need to contain as much detail as possible, however minor it may seem. So remember, follow the protocols for a new flowchart, and if it's a petrol spill, shut down electricity, close any valves, dial 000 and evacuate the site. If it's diesel, then isolate the source, evaluate the scale of the spill and then report and gather resources as necessary. Use containment booms as early as possible and try to prevent fuel spills from migrating off of your site.